Hi, my name is Ophi YouTube Videos. I am a feminist and a lesbian. I make conversational commentary videos about both of those things, and this week I got quoted in The Guardian. I want to talk more about that, about the article itself, some of the response to it, and a couple other little notes I have about the misogyny slop ecosystem. That term comes from a video I made back in February of this year when I was looking into the infamous Little Bump interviewer, who has since pumped out dozens and dozens of anti-Blake Lively videos. In that video, I spoke a bit about how while this one particular interviewer occupies a very specific space, and one I don't think she will have much appeal in situations where she was not personally slighted, she's part of a larger system, which I dubbed the misogyny slop ecosystem. And then I had the honor of speaking to Taylor Lorenz about it for her podcast Power User, because she is a Nuance Corner friend who really liked the term. In our episode description, she wrote, "The misogyny slop ecosystem is a sprawling network of online creators and communities that manufacture and boost smear campaigns against women who speak out for women's rights or have been victims of gender-based crimes like sexual assault, harassment, or abuse." In our episode of Power User, we break down some of the big camps and players in this ecosystem, and I am so proud of that episode. I'm still so honored to have been asked to be part of it, and I'm also so honored that being on that podcast led Steve Rose from The Guardian to reach out to me to speak about the misogyny slop ecosystem even more. But do you know something that happens whenever something big and exciting goes on in my YouTube career like this? If you guessed the haters go into shambles, you guessed correctly. Though it is a terrible time to be preying on my downfall, the obsessive haters on my snark Reddit remain both infuriated and obviously intimidated by me. I've spoken before about how one such account on that Reddit popped up with my former legal name and my year of birth, how that was clearly done to scare me, and that while I don't much care about a name even the government doesn't recognize anymore, I did care about everything else that came up when I searched my name and my city. It was a deeply violating feeling to not just see my prior addresses and phone numbers and roommates all listed on one of those shady people finder sites, but to know that somebody who hates me enough to be active in a subreddit with rules against showing kindness toward me had gone through that information to find a name for their new little sock account. And that is why I want to thank my friends at Aura for sponsoring this video and for helping to keep me safe online. These days, whenever something as exciting as a podcast feature or an article quote happen, I Google that information about myself again, and I genuinely feel so much safer. I have said this before, and I will say it again. Even if you are not a public lesbian feminist with an increasingly high profile and an unhinged snark Reddit about you, there are unfortunately companies who would love to sell and share your data just like they do mine. This is how you end up with your inbox and your voicemail flooded with spam. Data brokers and shady people finder websites are happy to sell your data to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. They do it without your consent, without your permission, and while they're legally required to take it down if you ask them to, they make it intentionally difficult and confusing to try to ask them to, sometimes forcing you to sign up for an account, giving them more of your information just to get it taken down from public view. Which is why I recommend today's sponsor, Aura, to my family, my friends, and everyone here in the Nuance Corner, because they will take care of the hard part for you, automatically removing your info from these websites and keeping it off. I get emails every week from Aura with new opt-out requests that they've put in on my behalf on websites I wouldn't even known to look for myself on, and it's not the only thing they take off my plate for me. Aura is all-in-one digital security. I have used antiviruses for a long time, right? I am 26 years old. I grew up on the internet. It feels to me, though, like having just an antivirus and not Aura was the same as locking my front door and leaving the back one wide open. With Aura, I get alerts if my personal information is found on the dark web. I get real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking. I get 24/7 identity theft protection monitoring. I get a secure VPN, antivirus, password manager, and more. And if something does go wrong, they have expert support available around the clock, and they also offer up to $5 million in identity theft insurance protection. And all of this at one affordable price. One app, every layer of protection. Aura makes me feel so much safer as a publicly facing feminist and honestly woman on the internet. I have had really great experiences with support even when I had silly questions about the antivirus. I am so happy with the opt-out service that I can't even show you an example of what kind of information used to be available about me, just all the emails Aura sends on my behalf to get it taken down. And they started sending these opt-out emails for me as soon as I signed up. Aura has taken really good care of me, and because I want Aura to take good care of you too, you can try it for 14 days for free at aura.com/ofidoki or by scanning the QR code on screen right now. In those 2 weeks, you will discover where your data is being exposed and sold. And you also might discover how much you enjoy having a VPN, like I did. And you'll also definitely get a chance to see how helpful all their other features are as well. I am not leaving myself vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Thank you so much to Aura for sponsoring this video and so many others here on the channel. Let's get back to what's got my haters all riled up. Many Hollywood figures and organizations have come out in support of Lively, but America's right wing has taken an inordinate interest in the case, and is overwhelmingly siding with Baldoni. Fox News, for example, has run nearly 80 stories on the case in its website this year. Joe Rogan mentioned it on his podcast with comedian Brendan Schaub, accusing Lively and Reynolds of trying to take over the movie. And then there's Candace Owens, who has discussed the case at least 25 times this year on her YouTube show and podcast, eagerly responding to each new development in granular detail. Owens' allegiance is unambiguous. She has proven herself not to be a kind person, she said of Lively in January, and that's largely due to the fact that she is a modern feminist. By focusing on such ostensibly apolitical celebrity content, Owens has boosted her following considerably, appealing to viewers, predominantly female, who may have little interest in right-wing politics or knowledge of her more extreme beliefs, which range from downplaying the Holocaust to appearing with Kanye West in a White Lives Matter t-shirt, alleging that Brigitte Macron, wife of French President Emmanuel, is a man, and claiming Vladimir Zelensky a welfare queen. Now we are seeing articles headlined, "How Candace Owens is Uniting Conservatives and Liberals with Her It Ends With Us" coverage, although that appeared in conservative-leaning women's magazine Evie, whose coverage has also been largely anti-Lively. Another right-wing commentator with a newfound interest in the case is Megyn Kelly, the former Fox News presenter. In February, at the Conservative Political Action Conference, Kelly made Lively Baldoni the central topic of her onstage presentation. She described Lively as an avatar for leftist overreach and attempted to tie the case to a broader right-wing grievance narrative. "You've been gaslit to high heaven every time you've picked up a newspaper in the United States, every time you've turned on CNN. You have been the victim of overbearing and controlling leftists who think they are the final arbiters of what's best for you and your life." In the same way the manosphere has used male-oriented sports and fitness content as a gateway into far-right politics, some are seeing this new celebrity focus as a way to draw women down the same path, and calling it the womanosphere. Taking to heart Andrew Breitbart's famous dictum that politics is downstream from culture, the right's goal has long been to take back the culture, as self-tagged #conservative influencer Abby Shapiro, sister of right-wing commentator Ben, proclaimed in a 2020 YouTube video titled "Conservative Women, It's Our Time." "I used to think that sounded really silly," says feminist YouTuber Ofidoki of Shapiro's message. And then fast forward to 2025, and that's who people are listening to about things like Hollywood pop culture gossip, which I did assume until very recently would be a more liberal conversation. It truly is not anymore. It does feel very dominated by conservatives, and intentionally so. Even though I think this article has laid out beautifully exactly how political this entire thing has become, because how many other centerpieces of conversation at CPAC would you let somebody try to bullshit you as apolitical? I want to talk about this just a little bit more, in part because a recent flood of comments from people who read about as much of the article as Kirsty Flaw did have been insisting to me for the last few days on their right to view a deeply political thing as apolitical. First of all, the treatment of women, sexual harassment just in a vacuum, which this certainly did not happen in, is a political issue. Feminism is a political issue. Gender equality is a political issue. This is a political issue, even if it is more fun to pretend that there's never any implications to it when you think women be lying. Sorry for being a buzzkill, it's political. And we can quickly run through a couple, but not all, of the other things that make this political. Because if you're able to admit that this is political, you can also take a look at what the new Republican regime did by moving in immediately to weaken the EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, the people who gave Blake Lively a right to sue her boss. Then you can try to think for a second about how much easier it is to swallow the idea of workplace protections being rolled back and weakened when the context you're hearing about those workplace protections in the most often is being served to you with heaps and heaps and heaps of tasty woman hate to make it go down sweeter when you're told that women and workers don't deserve to not be sexually harassed at work and that they're evil and lying and conniving if they claim that they have been. This is a political issue. This is also a political issue because it is a labor issue. Justin Baldoni was a bad and creepy boss who ran a workplace that made multiple women feel deeply uncomfortable. And it's also not only a feminist issue and a labor issue, but it is specifically a feminist labor issue, as Blake Lively was not given breaks or privacy to breastfeed, and as her gender is why she was sexually harassed. The smear campaign being run against her is political. If you do not believe that this is how politics work right now, you are paying too little attention for anything else I say in this video to even register to you. This entire situation is political. It has become increasingly political with the way the right wing has noticeably swarmed to it, but because it is fun and exciting to be presented with a woman to hate, everyone plugs their ears and pretends like this isn't political. But it is. This is political, and my coverage of it is political as well. And I understand that in her Slop update video, Kirsty tried to claim that not only is this not political, but also that her content can't be political because she's not eligible to vote in the United States. Politics happen everywhere, and you are still engaging in politics even if you never cast a vote in your entire life. Most especially if you are actively grinding out algorithm slop in service of a right-wing pipeline. The argument that somebody's ability to vote in a United States election or not has any bearing on whether or not something is political is so genuinely lacking in depth, intelligence, or critical thinking that it does not merit a full refutation, but it does make me wonder if it's even worth addressing points made against me by someone this void of reasonable thought about the world we live in. Oh, and if you're wondering why Kirsty Flaw made a little Slop update about me to send her fans to come harass me in my comments and here on Instagram again, it is because she is a deeply sensitive and insecure woman who has nothing better to contribute to this conversation than a petty grievance that happened a decade ago because she's bad at her job. And it clearly got under her skin to be referenced in this article in a way that was not kissing her ass or icing her permanently bruised ego. And let's see how she was referenced, because as much as I love this article and as thrilled as I am to be part of it, I think Kirsty Flaw got off pretty easy. It's not just right-wing figures weighing in against Lively. Everyone seems to be at it. Go on X or YouTube or TikTok and you'll be served up an endless stream of videos discussing and analyzing the case in forensic detail, overwhelmingly from an anti-Lively point of view. Content creators have been in a feeding frenzy over the case. There are celebrity gossip tea channels, body language experts, AI-powered pseudo-journalism, all supported by an army of, quote, mommy sleuths, end quote, laptop detectives whose examination of every nuance of the case often verges on conspiracy theory. Is Lively out for revenge because she was secretly in love with Baldoni? Is Lively's new comms manager, Nick Shapiro, a former CIA agent, using black box tricks to stifle negative stories? Did she burp and fart all the time on the set of Gossip Girl? Content scrutinizing Baldoni's behavior or background in similar detail is much harder to find. All this activity has whipped up a maelstrom of clickbait, content creators, celebrity media, and prominent public figures feeding off each other's outputs, recycling and regurgitating the same low-quality, primarily anti-woman information, all boosted by an engagement targeting social media algorithms. It's a perfect storm, says Doki. She calls it the misogyny slop ecosystem. As an example, she points to a clip followers of the Lively Baldoni case will doubtless have seen several times. An interview Lively did while promoting a Woody Allen movie in 2016, in which she was judged to have been rude to Norwegian journalist Kirsty Flaw. Flaw says, "Congrats on your little bump," to Lively, who was pregnant at the time. "Congrats on your little bump," Lively replies to Flaw, who is not pregnant. The amount of people who have recirculated that clip and who have spoken about that specific interaction, and then they'll make 20, 30 minutes of content about it, and their audience will eat it up because they also thought she was really rude in that clip, says Doki. And it's like, if everybody wasn't recycling that clip, you wouldn't have known about it, because that happened 10 years ago. Flaw, incidentally, is now selling Justice for Justin t-shirts on her Etsy site. Yeah, he didn't even mention that she herself purveys slop now, just the t-shirts, which she hawks under her new video, "So This Is Modern Feminism," with not a single hint of self-awareness. I didn't even tell him about her malicious copyright strikes against my channel, or the way that she misinterprets the content of my videos and research stream about her to her audience to deliberately entice them to come harass me. We just talked about the ecosystem. But her audience has been harassing me, which, again, the way they're doing it is just truly not intelligent enough for me to genuinely engage with. They did not read this article. They do not comprehend what they are talking about. They just send me nasty messages on Instagram or try to pretend to be an original old-time feminist in long screeds in my comment sections, which I would disagree with even a suffragette if she thought it was politically neutral to buddy up with Candace Owens. I disagree with a lot of original old-time feminists about a lot of things. And while Kirsty knows little enough about feminism or anything else she's talking about to be happy basking in the glow of approval from conservatives and liberals alike in her audience, I have no such interest in pretending that this is neutral or that I am. I don't fuck with conservatives. It's kind of a defining feature of my feminism. Little Bump t-shirt lady, though, she thinks it's really awesome and nice and good for you if you voted in a way that might endanger her ability to stay in the United States, even though, I personally voted against mass deportation, and I sincerely hope she gets to stay in the United States as long as she wants to. I do not believe that is a feeling that the majority of her audience has about her, but she has clearly made her decision about who she'd like to court, and I will leave her to it and to them. I honestly don't really want to waste too much more of my or your time with this. Kirsty is offended to be in this article. She makes a point that is literally rebutted in the article, that nobody is saying believe all women, and that it was in fact never a slogan of Me Too. She didn't get far enough in the article to even know that, to not accuse me of believing all women like a modern feminist. Anyway, though, rather than talking about Kirsty's misunderstanding of feminism or the misunderstanding inherent to anybody trying to lecture me about how if I was a better feminist, I would simply eat up the woman slop, I would like to continue talking about this article. It is such an honor to be featured in this article in The Guardian, because I respect Steve Rose's work, because I really appreciated the chance to talk to him about this, and also because of the other sources who are cited in this piece. I cited Depp versus Heard as an example of when I feel like this online ecosystem really started booming, and Steve spoke to an example who I think backs a lot of us up about how related the Depp versus Heard thing of it all feels to the other feminists examining this case. You can read more from my section of the interview on your own, or you can listen to the live stream I did the day the article came out for more of my part, but I'm jumping forward just a little bit here. We've been here before, and not that long ago. In 2022, the entertainment world was gripped by another trial of the century, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. The similarities are striking. A famous woman alleging abuse, a famous man counterclaiming victim status himself, and online opinion apparently coming down heavily in favor of the man. Hashtags such as hashtag justice for Johnny Depp and hashtag Amber Heard is an abuser dominated social media ahead of the US trial. Depp initially sued the Sun newspaper in the UK for calling him a wife-beater and lost. He then sued Heard in the US for defamation and won. Data experts later found that much of Depp's social media support was inorganic, spread by accounts that were suspiciously coordinated, prolific, recently activated, and/or single-minded in their focus on Depp Heard and nothing else. An in-depth investigation by Tortoise Media suggested most of the anti-Heard activity was almost certainly manufactured and pointed fingers at hired troll farms in the Middle East. A similar picture is emerging with Lively Baldoni, says Zuhan Chen, founder of social media data analysts Information Tracer. Chen helped investigate the Depp Heard online activity, and he has been looking at Lively Baldoni. In his analysis of the top 500 tweets on the subject, he found that support is overwhelmingly pro-Baldoni, sharing hashtags like hashtag Blake Lively is a liar and hashtag justice for Justin Baldoni by a ratio of 1 to 150 to 1 to 300, depending on which metric you use. Judging by the age of the accounts and the number of times they have posted, I would estimate more than 80% of pro-Justin Baldoni posts are inorganic, Chen says. A lot of the defenses the misogynists are running for themselves in my comment section are about not being bots. Sometimes they're leaving these comments from brand new accounts with nothing but a string of letters and numbers for a username, almost always on accounts with no posted videos or content, no matter how hard they're trying to come at me for not being as successful as they think I want to be. Or they have no actual audience or platform, but they've uploaded like a couple of concert or graduation videos a couple of months ago. The thing is, I'm not even calling all those people bots. I do understand that despite it making me want to tear my hair out to imagine it, a lot of real life people dedicate their time, attention, and energy to this. And they do it in the most sexist and conspiracy brain rotten ways possible. The point of the misogyny slop ecosystem, the thing that makes it an ecosystem and not simply a bot campaign, is that there are real people creating content, recycling each other's ideas, sharing Candace Owens's anti-woman, anti-Me Too talking points. But then you really can't tell if the 150 upvotes you got on Reddit were from other people like you devoting all their time to that, or if it came from Jed Wallace's bot farm. You cannot tell. And if your thoughts aren't original enough to be recognized as your own, how distinguishable are you from a bot farm? How much more seriously could I possibly be asked to take your opinion if you can't even be fucked to come up with it yourself? I bet none of the Kirsty Flaw fans who came to leave hate comments on this video will even watch far enough into the video to truly address this point, but I'm not talking to them, really. I'm just speaking rhetorically here. But to my audience, who I love, I will say that it is genuinely an honor to be quoted alongside these sources, especially this next one. Hollywood has always used PR and behind-the-scenes media influence to construct or dismantle a celebrity's reputation, says Professor Sarah Bennett-Weiser of the Annenberg School for Communication at the University of Pennsylvania, who researches gender in media. But what happens in the current moment of unregulated, unmoderated digital media that circulates so fast and that has so many nodes? You can make it look like it's grassroots, when in fact it's very calculated and very intentional. From their supporters' perspectives, the victimhood is the other way round, and it is men like Depp and Baldoni who are being persecuted. One Hollywood crisis management veteran described Lively Baldoni to me as a come-to-Jesus moment. The hashtag #MeToo movement was brought on by liberal progressives who started a movement of let's believe all women all the time, no matter what, and slowly but surely that shroud has been breaking. In fact, hashtag #MeToo's initial slogan was just believe women, not believe all women. This is a right-wing multimedia campaign that is about painting women as inherently lying and manipulative, says Bennett-Weiser. That's why people say Me Too has gone too far. That's what Andrew Tate says. That's what radicalized young men say, that women are trying to manipulate them. They're liars. They make false accusations. Their whole goal is to ruin men. That is the broader cultural context in which this case and the media attention to this case starts to make sense. While privileged white women like Lively and Heard might not be the ideal torchbearers for all victims of abuse, in this context they are painted as avatars for modern feminism and leftist overreach, all the better to contrast them with a more traditionalist, conservative ideal of femininity. That idea of some women being seen as manipulative and lying, and other women being seen as virtuous and responding to a higher calling of motherhood and family and husband, seems to characterize some of the gender cultural dynamics at play right now, Bennett-Weiser observes. This demarcation of ideal femininity, at least in the United States, is rooted in a very particular reactionary authoritarian politics. Something else I talked to Steve about that I'm glad really comes through in the article is that this entire thing has felt like such a clear backlash to Me Too, even before Candace Owens announced her Harvey Weinstein redemption campaign content. And even now that Candace Owens has made it so clear that her hatred for Blake Lively is one of many attempts to weaken what little goodwill even remains towards victims this far removed from the popularization of Me Too, people who otherwise identify as liberal and otherwise would not agree with Candace Owens will either outright engage with her misogyny content directly, or they'll get their entertainment via someone further along in the misogyny slop ecosystem who won't outright source her but will recycle and present her ideas to their audience. And those creators who are further down in the ecosystem are incentivized to do that by both their audience's reaction to them finding and identifying the next woman to hate, and by the algorithms, the way that these bad actors and bot farms and crisis PR teams manipulate those algorithms to boost that content. And then the creator also doesn't know how many of their upvotes are coming from real people or from bot farms, but they don't care because the money spends the same. I mentioned this in my podcast episode with Taylor Lorenz. We talk about the Amber Heard litmus test, looking at a creator's past videos to see if they also jumped on the smear campaign against Amber Heard. And I think about that so much because chances are, if your job was to talk about how evil you thought Amber Heard was in 2022, you've probably been spending every year since then keeping an eye peeled for the next woman who would be given that level of spectacle misogyny that you could cash in on. And that fucking sucks. Like, all of this is really bleak, and especially with the way that the algorithm incentivizes the hate content, it feels really difficult to fight against. But my one positive takeaway is that even though it feels like our numbers are so much smaller by comparison, there are also feminist creators and writers, both on YouTube and other places online, and feminist voices in journalism, who are willing not only to address these high profile cases of obvious misogyny when they happen, but who have also been keeping an eye out for the next Amber Heard as well for the last 3 years. Not to make content degrading her, but to try to defend her, or at least in my case, to make the people who are on the victim's side feel a little bit less shouted down in at least one corner of the internet. This is well-established Ophi lore by now. The fact that Princess Weeks and Leisha Miller were brave enough to speak up for Amber Heard at the time of the smear campaign is quite literally why my channel exists. I knew that I wanted to be able to have a platform, that I wanted to be able to have a voice, and that I wanted to be able to speak to people somewhere other than just my Facebook friends list the next time that an Amber Heard happened. And something that I have told Steve, and something that I'm sure that I have said before, is that back during the Depp versus Heard defamation trial, when the anti-Amber Heard content was so pervasive, I knew a few things immediately. I knew that I was on her side. I knew that she had not said, "Tell the world that I, a man." I knew that she was just mocking him and said, "Man, I'm a victim," and not, man, I'm a man, I'm a male victim." But anyway, I knew that. But I also knew that this would happen again, that another woman would allege something heinous and that she would be made the victim in that story. And not only did I know that this would happen again, but I knew that she too would be called Amber Heard. And then that happened. Blake Lively is constantly referenced as the next Amber Heard, doing an Amber Heard, pulling an Amber Heard, going full Amber Heard. I knew that would happen. I'm not the only person who knew that would happen. I have friends who knew that would happen. We talked about how this would happen. And so while the algorithm is going to try to take your attention and make you sit and watch hours and hours about how horrible a woman is, you can choose not to do that. You have a choice not to do that every time a new woman is presented to you. You have a choice to say, I would rather spend my time thinking about something else or thinking about people who have done more serious things. While I don't know that the algorithm will ever think as fondly on videos that are not going with the common and often bot-amplified narrative, I do know that the creators who are making content like this can have a deep impact on the people they're speaking to. And I know that because the creators who posted videos about this kind of thing a few years ago had a deep impact on me. I genuinely don't give a shit how angry it makes the people on the Team Justin Baldoni subreddit that I got to talk to The Guardian. They didn't. I think that's probably why they're so mad. This is a shorter video that I've been doing lately, in part because you can go watch my Breaking Dawn video if you want 2.5 hours of Ophi content, and also in part because I haven't felt like there's been many worthwhile updates in the It Ends With Us saga recently. The situation has not changed. My perspective on the situation has not changed, and to continue to drip feed little update videos when there's really nothing new to say doesn't feel like something I want to do. If there are big updates and when things like this happen, I certainly will chime in. I love to do live streams where I'm researching and reading the legal documents, but again, like the Kirsty Flaw fan comments are not worth responding to, neither are all the ones saying, well, you didn't respond to every little thing. Responding to every little thing is part of the slop. We're not in the slop over here. Also, another creator who has been covering the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively saga and who I think has been making the absolute opposite of slop is Little Shop of Ali. I just want to suggest her video about Blake Lively and the myth of the perfect victim. I think it is so fantastic. I am genuinely honored to be in that as well. I think that this is a masterpiece of a YouTube video. I'm going to link it in the description below, and you should definitely watch it and subscribe to Little Shop of Ali. I also have a suggestion playlist with some other feminist voices I think you should be listening to on YouTube. I'd love to know who you think I should add to it, but Kirsty will not be there. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to Aura for sponsoring this video. Thank you to The Guardian for having me in this article. Thank you, Steve Rose, for reaching out to me. This is genuinely one of the coolest things that's ever happened in my life, and I'm just really, really excited and proud and happy about it. And I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you also to my lovely Patreon subscribers, a few of whose names you can see on the screen right now. Patreon is a fantastic way to help support me financially. You get a couple extra videos from me a month, and if you're a video enjoyer and above tier and you'd like your name to be listed on the screen, you can comment on one of the posts over there and I will make sure to get you added. Thank you so much to my Patreon subscribers, to everybody who has supported me via the coffee, via live chats on my live streams, super thanks, comments. All of that makes such a huge difference in my life. I really appreciate it. I am so, so grateful to be able to have this job, to be able to think about things for a living and support myself that way. It is such an incredible honor. I love you very much. I'll be back again soon.